Recently, I had a chance to catch up with Cathy DiLollo. She is a mom of 5 girls, ages 12 to 22, I believe, and very successful at teaching them principles of health and how to be self-responsible and self-accountable. That's one of the things I love about what I get to do is just show you some examples of real people doing this every day that kind of break through the noise of the health mainstream and do things that make sense, logical sense, that aren't influenced by the mainstream model or big pharma. So enjoy this interview from a holistic mom. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. This show was created for and inspired by the thousands of patients I've served, so it's time for me to speak up and speak out on their behalf. With a wide range of experts, we bring you weekly insights, diving deep into topics of controversy to bust through the sugar coating that keeps you and your family stuck in the mainstream. All right, we're here today with Dr. Frank DiLollo and his beautiful wife, Cathy. I almost called her Dr. Cathy.
She is Dr. Cathy in my house.
She is. So, Cathy, thanks for being here with us today. So what do you want to share about like being such an awesome mom and having the beautiful daughters you have and how you guys are managing this crisis of COVID and how empowered and smart your daughters are regarding health and accountability and responsibility?
We just try the best we can. We're not perfect, but just keep boosting their immune system. They get adjusted. We do, vitamin C, oregano oil, olive leaf oil, vitamin A. We just keep boosting, getting them outside, exercising, keeping them on a schedule.
Oh, that's cool.
That helps.
And so what age ranges do you have?
22 to 12.
That's awesome. When you are talking to these guys and you just hear the background commotion, it's funny because there's just these cackling hens all over the place, just chattering. But there's
something going on.
They're bright and beautiful and very active. Tell us about some of the challenges they're faced with from Dr. Frank alluded to at times, interactions with friends and other folks who either don't get or don't share the same healthful viewpoints, and how that interface has affected your girls.
I think that now they realize that they're not against me anymore, which in the past they'd be like, oh, well, why do you get organic food and, our friends eat this and why can't we eat that? You're just being ridiculous. But I think now it finally caught up where they're like, oh, this is good that we're eating organic food. It's much better for us. And then you see the switch where the friends are like, oh, let me try your food. It's really good.
Isn't that something, Dr. Wade? Think about that. Even our own children that have grown up in this atmosphere still not defied us in any way. I wouldn't say that, but I would say they questioned it because that's not what their friends are doing, right? That's not how they eat. Why don't we eat this? Or why do we eat that? Or why don't we have these items in our house? Because Mary, John, and Sally have them, and they tasted good when we were at their house, right?
Well, Doritos was the big thing they wanted.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm that surprised. I don't want to play like, oh yeah, that's really surprising, because I'd be a really bad journalist in that case. I understand because my family, I have similar folks in my family. A nursing assistant. Just as an example, brought up being adjusted, was sickly for various reasons of sugar and chronic stuff that they would continue to eat, but always like, oh, I want to be adjusted. I need to be adjusted. Oh, I feel so much better. And now doing nursing and completely bought into the model of vaccine and that drugs are going to save us. And I'm just like, I'm not here to change their mind, but to your daughter's credit is that is their natural evolution. They're going to have those feelings of feeling like they need to fit in at times,
right?
Not feeling isolated, not feeling disconnected. And then all of a sudden coming back around because you guys are leaders of your household. And all of a sudden it's like, here's a crisis that's turned into an opportunity again.
Yeah. And they see it. Yeah. They see it now.
So
job, I think.
you guys work so hard to make sure that they're not only provided for, but that they have critical thinking on their side, for a lack of a better way but just like the ability to think through and ask questions. Right. What have you noticed the most in this crisis? Like you just mentioned, hey, thanks, Mom. I'm so glad we're doing this now. Now I start to see this. But what else do you see, and where do you see some of those changes taking place, even down to 12, you said, right?
Yeah. I see that they're making their own food throughout the day, and they're like, "Oh, I'm eating really healthy today, Mom. We're not getting sick. We're eating really good." And they're starting to help out where now I'm making dinner and they're doing all the cleanup. That's helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I see them coming together and realizing that this is a good way to be brought up.
Is there anything, Cathy, you want to share with parents that you see as a struggle that let's see, that in terms of how parents can start to, because a lot of the things you're doing is working with your daughters. So how does a parent that has a child that's making those choices, where do they start? How do they start to, where does that start? What do you recommend for them?
I guess it starts with research. You research different things, and then I have them read it and make up their own minds and, ask themselves the questions, right? Is this a good way of doing things? This is another side of, I don't know. What's a good example?
I think one thing that Kat did was, I'll give you an example of our twins. Our twins are 16 years old, and they had lacrosse tryouts before everything hit the fan and there's no more season. But they wanted to recover because they were sore. They were sore from the amount of running that they had to do and the workouts and so forth. And we had gotten done watching the documentary. What's the one, Dr. Wade, with the plant-based, the newest one? Game Changers. Yeah. Game Changers documentary. And it's about plant-based. We're not plant-based. We eat animal products, but we were just saying that, hey, listen, we heard that, and then we put a smoothie together for them, and then we were giving them plant-based foods after their workouts. And I kid you not, I think to answer your question is, where do you start is you got to introduce things to them and allow them to have their own experience, right, so that they own it for themselves. Isabella, my one twin, she goes, by the way, I felt really awesome after having that smoothie. It really, that plant-based stuff really works.
Yeah. Now they'll get up and make it themselves.
Yeah. Now they do it themselves. Right.
Yeah. So just keep introducing things, have them watch documentaries, read articles, and persistence.
Right. It's crazy. That's good. That's great advice. Literally just kind of starting, just period, right? Just starting somewhere and being able to keep at it. Anything else you want to share? Pearls, wisdom?
I would just say is when it comes to children, like you're asking us because we're parents of 5, and not that gives us any more authority than anybody else. At the same time, we have experiences. Let's just say that based on the numbers, we have experiences. But we never, I know Kat doesn't want to ever come from the position of like, we're a healthy family and this is what we do and everyone else should do that. And, that type of thing. Not at all. We do our thing. If people are interested in finding out why the kids are so healthy and why we don't get sick and why things go well in that way for us, we're glad to share it. I don't want to sound like I have other health professionals, let's just say, that help me professionally in business that are also patients. And they also, shall we say, practice some of the things from a health perspective that we as parents do, okay, or do not do. And they say to me flat out, they say, all I know is I look at my children, my 2 children, and I look at their development and I look at how they are physically, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on and on. And when we have play dates with other children that are similar in age, they say that I see the difference. So I told him, I said, this particular person I'm thinking of, I said, you have to be careful what you say because it's making you sound like your children are so much better, whatever. He says, I understand that. He says, but I'm talking to you as my doctor to say, this has been my observation. Not to say that one is good or one is bad, but he's literally seeing the difference of people that, let's say, have a really, really crappy diet for one thing, as opposed to someone that doesn't have a perfect diet, but a little bit more conscious about their diet and what they're feeding to their children. Sleep habits, water, getting chiropractic adjustments or not getting chiropractic adjustments, things like that. It's just amazing. And we see the same thing, but we never want to sound like those people that, and not to say that he was just sharing something with me, but it's just an observation.
Well, you two, you shouldn't downplay the observation as impertinent data. That's still a data point from a patient that actually has, just imagine, you guys already do this. So again, I'll toot your horn for you so you don't have to. That's a great book, by the way. It's called Brag, The Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. Mm-hmm. I have that book. So anyway, when you have patients like that does that not give you chills? Does that not just, that gives me chills hearing it, because I can relate with patients that I have as well like that, and they don't know how to categorize it. And even though they know it, it's hard for them to share it because they feel like they're isolating themselves.
Yeah.
Because again, the majority doesn't want to think that way. They're not programmed to think that way. And we talked about that in another episode, but the conditioning that goes on. So when you guys are the example, that is way stronger than being this preaching voice, right? So you're literally an example of health, of a healthy family and what it looks like to be healthy. You're not on drugs. Your kids are beautiful. They're smart. They have this word that we're going to deep dive into later, Dr. Frank, called adaptability. And that adaptability is the reason this human experience will go on beyond us or not, right? So the ability to adapt to stresses, they're adapting to viruses every day. They're adapting to bacteria. You got a great story you shared. I'd like to hear Cathy's version of someone who got sick, a friend of your daughter's, and then they ask and say, well, what are you going to do without an antibiotic? Something to that effect. Can you share that story?
Yeah, she's talking to her friend, and I guess my daughter was saying how she took, certain natural remedies, got adjusted, and the girl was like, yeah, but don't you need an antibiotic? And she was like, for what? Like, I don't have a bacteria. Why would I need an antibiotic? And the girl didn't understand that. She's like, well, I guess my parents just don't know any better. Well, then that opened her eyes to, maybe I should research and see, do I really need an antibiotic? For what it was, I can't remember. But I do have a cute story. One day, one of my daughters came home from school, and you know how it's the time of year, everybody has allergies. And she was little in elementary school, and she goes, Mom, so-and-so has this allergy, and this one has a peanut allergy. And she goes, so what's my allergy? She just automatically thought she's supposed to have an allergy too. And you don't have one. Just because somebody else has one doesn't mean you have one too. No, you don't have any allergies.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So it's amazing to see the kid's mind, how they think. Everybody has an allergy. Why shouldn't I have an allergy?
There's some beauty in that innocence too. I love it. There's just this natural curiosity, like, hey, can you help me out with this, Ma? What about my allergy? And again, that's the conditioning, right? That's society's conditioning them to like.
She looks like, doesn't everybody have allergies? I don't understand that.
I love it. I love it.
To unteach what they're seeing and thinking they think is normal. Like another normal thing for them was that they thought was normal, like when it's the time of the month. Well, I'm supposed to take Motrin. No, you're not supposed to take Motrin. There's other remedies and other things you can do. Everyone else does it,
We're going to talk about that at some point. There's one of the programs I'm working on right now is the ability to digest and process carbs, fats, and proteins. And one of the things that Dr. Loomis, one of my mentors, discovered was along the way, menses is painful, and especially, but it doesn't have to be. And so here's what he learned in summary was that when the endometrial wall is thickened and there's no pregnancy, right? There's no conception. And when that comes to shedding, which is menses, when the body is protein deficient, what do you think it wants to do with that protein wall? Doesn't want to let it go because the body's protein deficient. So painful menses where there's deep cramping, where that tissue doesn't want to be let go and the body yet needs to let it go. And so what Loomis discovered is when protein digestion and protein intake is adequate, there's less painful. Menses isn't supposed to be that painful all the time. It's just supposed to happen.
Diet changes you can make,
chiropractic
helps.
Exactly. So it's really cool when we look at the balance of why one has it more than the other, right? And I'm sure you've been able to experience that with 5 different bodies.
Yeah, so far 4.
Oh, thanks. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Soon to be. So anything else you want to share? These stories are golden, Cathy, and it's everyday life for you. So you're just like, oh, I got nothing.
Yeah. I think that's it.
I think
I'm sure there's questions that people have that they can ask.
I like that you touched on unteaching and just the exposure of being an attentive parent, because you guys are very awake parents in your relationship. You're not off doing your own thing, serving your own egomaniacal, egoic needs, so to speak. You're there for your girls. You are there very communicative. That's just my experience knowing you. So you have good relationships. Not that there's perfect. And obviously when you have adolescents, teenagers, it's like bumpy regardless, but nonetheless, you guys are communicating. And so when parents are involved like that and you're teaching and you're bringing up things as they are exposed, like, hey, why do you think that is that so-and-so thing? I mean, do you realize that you don't need an antibiotic all the time? Now, again, based on the audience, they're going to think, hey, this is crazy thinking. Well, it's not crazy, irresponsible thinking. But to some who think everything, and Dr. Frank and I talk about it, and they fear disease and they fear the germ, well, then they're going to need a drug anytime they don't feel right, period. That's it. That's their reality.
That's the word. It's fear-based. I think some parents make decisions on fear. They just want everything to be okay and quickly, and every parent wants the same for their child, to feel better.
So then we could talk about, helicopter parenting, hovering, and we could talk about being a jet, or whatever, right? What's the difference? I mean, at what stage, what are they supposed to be afraid of? What are they not supposed to be afraid of? And again, that's up to the parent. But if the parents are fearful, you guys are obviously not fearful. You're concerned maybe around safety, obviously, and make sure, that is, but when you come to health, you're building a really solid army of women who can lead their families down the road going, hey, this is how I see the world. My body's capable. My body's strong. My body's able. That's pretty awesome.
Trying to teach them not to live in a bubble, that kind of bubble, right?
Yeah, just be aware of different things and open your mind to different things too.
Just like we've been talking, just like we spoke about before, Dr. Wade. Awakening, waking up, keeping an open mind.
Question everything. That's the one thing I teach them too. Even if they do have to visit a doctor for something, question everything. If he says, like, I think you should take this, question it. Do I really need that? Has this side effect or that side effect?
Do you want to share that story, Cathy, of the collegiate piece or not? You can say no.
With the Tamiflu?
Oh, when my daughter had the flu. Yeah. I brought her in. She called me from college and said she didn't feel well. And for her not to feel well, which she always feels great, for her to call me, I knew that she didn't feel well. And so I picked her up and she needed a note. She was worried she had exam the next day and it wouldn't be excused. And I said, okay, let's just get a note. We'll go to one of those Medi places in and out and we'll get a note for you. So I go in and I said, I'm pretty sure she has the flu. Can you just do the flu swap? And I need a note for her for college. And he said, well, I don't think that she has the flu. I'm going to do a swab for strep. So he does the strep test, and I said, okay, but I'm pretty sure she has the flu. And he goes, no. He goes, usually when there's a flu, she would have a cough. And I go, well, doesn't it hit people in different ways? You know, people have different symptoms. And he said, well, I think she has strep. Okay, so he does it, comes back negative. Then he comes back in again and says, well, I don't think I want to do the flu test because I still don't think she has it. Let's do a mono test. And I said, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't have mono. I know, I've done my research. I know all the symptoms of all these things. I'm like, she doesn't have mono. He goes, well, the truth is, I don't want to use my flu swabs. And I said, why not? And he said, because I'm going to have hundreds of people coming in thinking that they have coronavirus, and I need those flu swabs to prove that they don't. Otherwise, I have to shut my place down. And I said, well, you didn't take my insurance. I paid $240. I need you to do the flu swab because I need the note for my daughter. So I said, all right, you can do the mono test. I said, but I'm not paying for it because that's not what I want. And she doesn't have mono. So, I mean, you got to go with your mom instinct because you know your kid the best, and you know what they probably have. Because if I let him talk me into things, it would have been a whole nother story. So he comes back, mono test is negative. He goes, all right, now we'll do the flu swab. He goes, she has flu A. I'm going to prescribe you Tamiflu. And I said, well, those have side effects. I said, I don't think we want to do that. And he said, well, do you want her to live? I mean, and thank God that I'm educated and I know my daughter is going to live without Tamiflu.
And it should be noted, she only had the flu because she is a college student, and you know what college students do.
She was run down.
She was run down. She was away from mom and dad. She wasn't going to get adjusted as regularly as she does when she's home. Her diet is probably way off. There might be a little bit of
thing.
Yeah, she was pledging for a sorority and whatever goes on with that.
So low on sleep, diet was off, and not as well self-care. I mean, that really makes sense to exposure to the immune system. But again, you guys understand the immune system.
Right.
And now the story makes sense. The story isn't, oh my God. And the funny thing is, you saw me laughing, and to anyone watching, it isn't out of discompassion. It's out of ridiculous nature that you were put on this planet with no means of survival. I mean, God bless that first question.
In your opinion, what happened now that she got influenza A naturally, not by an injection, but she had gotten it? Now she wants to be a teacher. We don't know where she contracted it or where she came run down or where she was exposed to it. However, it might have been through the sorority because some of the girls tested positive for it as well. But she also was doing not student teaching, but she was going into schools with all the little kids, and she was doing rounds because they start to do that now because that's what her major is. So to your point, now that she got it, now what happens?
Guess what? If I'm a kid and I know what I know, my parents bring me up, I want her as a teacher. You know why? Mm-hmm. Because she has natural immunity, which is the strongest part of herd immunity. Right. So she is the kind of teachers we need that has had that exposure, not a weakened version of it that's sharing mutated versions from a weakened, compromised immune system that's heavy metal toxic over time. Again, that's a whole new argument that flies in the face of, pardon me?
None of us got the flu, how everyone thinks, oh, it's so contagious, stay away. I mean, she was breathing in my face.
Nobody else in the house got it, breathing in her face, and she was knock out, drag out, like where you know.
Just good luck. That's just good luck.
Yeah. No, we're we're lucky. That happened.
There is sarcasm, and yes, it is an opinion, but God bless folks. If the germ theory were actually true, none of us would be alive to be discussing anything. So stop smoking the mainstream pipe. But here it is, Cathy DiLollo. What a great pleasure to see a mom successfully raising bright girls in the future, and then understand these stories. Those are golden stories because they're real life experiences from challenges that go on. And what's funny is Cathy is not the average parent that goes in there. Just imagine, and I'm going to say 8 or 9 out of 10 parents, moms who are the brightest one in the household, by the way, with healthcare in many cases, not across the board, but generally speaking, I think that's accurate. Mm-hmm. I think there was an old stat, 80% of decisions in healthcare are made by the women of the household. So in this case, Cathy was like, no, you're not giving her that, and she'll be fine. So don't threaten me. But how many parents fall prey to the white coat master self-labeled, aggrandized as the last word, very godlike, of course, that's what's going to happen. And so you need to have this, or it's like, look at her, and she's better for it.
Right.
By the way, was she suffering? Was she suffering because she didn't get the Tamiflu?
No. I mean, she basically had a 2-day fever. Fever broke, and all she had was a headache during the next 3 days, and then she was fine.
By the way, did you have to medicate that fever and put it down, like kill that thing?
No.
Why wouldn't you do that, Cathy?
Because she's burning off the bacteria or the virus. Well, in the flu case, the virus.
Yeah.
Burning it off. And that's probably why it only lasted for 2 days rather than 7.
So you're saying that fever is good?
Yes, it is.
Jeepers creepers, people. I can't say it any better. We're going to just drop the mic from here. Anything else you want to tell people, Kat? Last words?
Stay strong and ask questions.
Love it.
Yep. Go with your intuition.
Intuitive.
Mama bear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Mama bear. Yes. I like the word advocacy. You have to be your own advocate.
I agree.
And if you can't be.
Say that, yeah.
She says it all the time.
But I try to teach my kids too, because
Be
now that
your
they're at
own
the age,
advocate.
they're going, places on their own. They don't have me with them. And you have to be your own advocate. You have to stand strong what they believe in too.
I love it. Hey, one of the things I want to just share with Cathy at the end, and it's because I think you're the best. All right.
Hey, by the way, did your bride get where she needs to be safely? Everything's good?
She is, I think she's about 8 hours out, 8 or 9 hours out yet. But she stayed overnight, and she's on the road again.
She's driving.
She's driving. She had a full car. Yeah, she's got some stuff she's going to have with her. I mean, remember, she packs food, and she has her own nutritional window of foods she can have based on her celiac, and so she doesn't.
Oh, she was flying. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Okay.
So she's got a loaded car, and she is actually right now. She got sidetracked last night and was going to end up having to go. She got off track by like 50 miles, and she was on the phone with Cathy S. And Cathy was helping her with some logistics because Heather lost her signal or something like that. And so she was really frustrated because she was making great time. She thought she could drive through. And the last piece, though, she got sidetracked, and then now she's going to be either going through, and we don't want her going through New York. We want her going around New York, above New York. So I said, let me call DiLollo and see if there's a better route.
Yeah, I would have no clue. I'm terrible with directions.
Well, anyway, so she's doing good. She's not there yet, but I'll know more this eve. So tell them thanks for asking. I know you guys have got to hop, so thanks, Kat, for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you much for listening to this week's episode. I look forward to any feedback and or questions you might have. Direct them to our Facebook page, Frankly Speaking, Dr. Wade at Facebook. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice. Speaking up means you matter. So, get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the medical advice of your doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Annenson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or product. Individuals on this podcast may have
direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.